Welcome to the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood Council Future of Hilltop Mall meeting. I'm happy to say we have 2 out of 3 city council people here in attendance with our city planner. We're going to talk about the future of Hilltop Mall. And I'd like to say that we have 4 neighborhood councils here that's around the Hilltop Mall. And we've started a group called the Hilltop District Working Group. So bear with me, I'm a little tired, working night shift. So I'd like to introduce Goretha Johnson from the Parkchester Village Neighborhood Council, April Moore from Hilltop Village Council, Cesar Zepeda from the Hilltop District Council. So a little bit about neighborhood councils. We were started back in the 50s, I think, or 60s. And we advocate for our neighborhoods and communities, and we need people, volunteers to help us out. We're all volunteers. We have elections, and we have rules and regulations to abide by. So we really need your help. If you can volunteer, find out where your neighborhood council is, and please volunteer. So we have Lina Velasco, city planner. She's going to do a PowerPoint presentation. We've sent her several questions in, some from Prologis, the new owners buying Hilltop Mall. And so she's got a PowerPoint presentation and we'd like for her to share it, if you don't mind. Lina Velasco, Richmond City Planner. Thank you.
Thank you and good evening, everyone. I appreciate those that are here near and far. And thank you to our host, all the neighborhood councils. We're looking forward to continuing our work together. To Vice Mayor Johnson, Councilmember Bates, good to share the stage with you all. But once again, Lina Velasco, I'm the Community Development Director. And I'm really excited tonight to be able to share with you about a community planning process that we're going to be embarking on, which is the preparation of a Hilltop specific plan. And this specific plan will outline development standards, land uses, and all of that work builds off of our current general plan, which is the city master plan. And that was adopted in 2012, so I'll review a little bit of that. But tonight, so our goal tonight is to sort of share about this community process. Next slide, please. So our presentation covers about 5 general topics. I'll provide a little bit of background. We'll talk about the opportunity at Hilltop, what the planning process will look like, and then the funding opportunities that are helping to fund this effort, as well as the next steps. Next slide, please. So as Eduardo mentioned, some questions were provided to me. And so these were the general topic areas of questions that we received. So our goal today is to cover most of them during the presentation, specifically around land use and zoning, what's allowed, what type of buildings we can expect, what type of land uses, as well as what is the transportation and mobility options, what that looks like, how many jobs a project could create, as well as what is the community's input and review of a project. Next slide, please. So starting with the background, next slide, please. The current general plan was adopted in 2012, and this was after a significant community planning effort that lasted about 5 years. In which we had a general plan advisory group that was comprised of neighborhood council members, community stakeholders, businesses, as well as developers. So what the general plan identified Hilltop, and it's circled at the top of the map, is it identified Hilltop as an activity center. And these were places that were expected to be pedestrian and transit friendly, as well as supporting a mix of uses, as well as mix of densities, and it would create revenues and jobs, not just for the city, but for the region as a whole. Next slide. The major activity centers were expected to be sort of primary urban areas. They would provide a wide range of uses, including retail, office, housing, and entertainment-related uses such as movie theaters, restaurants, bowling alleys, whatever the mind can imagine. And as noted before, Hilltop is expected not only to serve Richmond residents, but also the region as a whole. So the idea it would attract people from near and far. Next slide. Hilltop is one of 3 major activity centers. So the other major activity centers that were identified are around downtown, near the Richmond BART station and Amtrak, as well as down by the ferry terminal, so the Marina Bay area. And these were areas that we expect to grow over the life of the general plan and beyond. Next slide, please. So with the activity centers, they're identified as high-intensity mixed use. So specifically, it would allow mid and high-rise mixed-use development, as well as areas that would be characterized by streets with minimal setbacks, wide sidewalks, public spaces, as well as would cater to pedestrians and transit users. So really trying to move away from predominantly auto-oriented uses and looking to create destinations where people feel comfortable walking and is a comfortable urban environment. The density that's currently allowed in the general plan is up to 125 units, dwelling units per acre. And those could take different forms. They could be, small apartments, 2 or 3 bedrooms. They could also be townhomes, as well as stacked flats. The intensity that's allowed is 1 to 5 floor area ratio. And so at the top of the slide, there's a diagram that helps illustrate what floor area ratio means. It's basically 1 time the land area. So if your site is 5 acres, you get 1 time of that in square footage. And so there's different ways that translates into buildings. The height that's allowed would be 15 to 135 feet, and 135 feet could be up to 12 stories depending on the ceiling heights. And so next slide, please. So as mentioned, the Hilltop is a change area. So the city was expecting that redevelopment would happen. Now, whether that included redevelopment of just the parking lot areas or the actual mall building and the surrounding sites, that's still to be determined. But in general, we do expect change, and particularly now as we see how retail has been impacted by COVID-19. So at the top right-hand corner, this is the priority development area that's known as Hilltop. So the City Council officially designated Hilltop as a PDA, which is a regional area that's supposed to be growing over the next few years up to 2050. So we do expect that this will create both jobs, but also housing opportunities for Richmond and the region. At the bottom of the right hand of the page, on the right side, is kind of the study area that we're looking at as part of the specific plan. Now that's subject to change based on the community input we received through the process, but these are the key areas that we're really going to focus on for the analysis. However, based on input, it could be expanded. The current zoning is commercial mixed use activity center, which is also known as the CM5 district, as well as there's portions that are CR, which is regional commercial. Next slide, please. So here's an image of actually the shopping center on Bloom. That this was part of the community planning process. So what could transformation look like within these sites? So at the top right is the current shopping center, and at the bottom right is potential redevelopment of the site, which, as you can see, there's more pedestrian plazas, forward-facing buildings, but multiple-story buildings as well. Next slide. Okay, so here we're gonna do a video. So Beverly Choi is going to be the project manager from ESA that's helping lead this planning effort. And so she's gonna be talking a little bit more about the opportunity at Hilltop as well as our planning process. And then it will come back to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lina. Good evening to everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Beverly Choi. I'm a community planner at ESA. And on behalf of the team, I'm pleased to be here and working alongside the City of Richmond on this pretty cool project. I'm going to be walking us through two sections in this presentation, the opportunity at Hilltop and the planning process. Some of you may not be surprised to hear that malls are not doing very well. In fact, 1/3 of enclosed malls built since the 1950s have closed or changed to a different use. These were built at a time when the malls were predominantly single use and auto-oriented. In the last 20 years, it's no surprise that e-commerce has really taken off, and so brick and mortar retailers, particularly malls, have had a really tough time competing against these online retailers. COVID, the pandemic has really exacerbated these challenges. So what are malls doing? Well, a number of them have pivoted to this new model, moving away from predominantly retail use into these more innovative, active, and mixed-use centers that incorporate a range of uses. So why don't we take a look at 3 case studies. This first one is Sunrise Mall. It's located in Citrus Heights, California. It is about 80 miles east of Richmond. It's 100 acres in size, 25 acres of which is the mall itself, and then the remainder is the parking lot. So when the project is built out, they anticipate this will draw as many as 12 million visitors per year. The program incorporates a mixture of land uses to include residential, hotels, retail, green space. And I want to note too that there is a really strong emphasis on providing spaces that encourage daytime and nighttime activation of the site. And you can see from the image on the bottom here that there is this community gathering space as well as an event tent. And the event tent supposedly can support as many as 100 events a year, which is pretty impressive. So the development will be phased, and residential and restaurant buildings will be considered as part of phase 1, and that will be located within the parking lot, kind of within the perimeter areas of the mall, and then working their way in with the subsequent phases. So this project is still in the planning process. The next case study is a little bit closer to Richmond in Newark, California. It's 40 miles to the south, a little bit smaller, 73 acres. They did recoin their motto from one-stop shop to one-stop living. In general, many of these projects have this live, work, and play theme. If you take a look at the program and the amenities, this project also supports a retail, residential, office, hotel, and entertainment uses. And the project is approved and is expected to break ground later this year, which is pretty exciting. The next case study is in Santa Ana. This one being New Place Mall, a little bit smaller in size compared to the others, but you can see here that the program is similar. It shares a lot of the commonalities with Sunrise as well as New Park. And on the top image, I do want to point out that there is a surface parking lot on the foreground. However, during later phases of the project, it is envisioned to be built out, and you can see that on the bottom image. Given the high land value of these areas, over time, developers will probably want to build vertically over these surface parking lots to really maximize the development potential here. So, what I just shared was just a quick glimpse of 3 different projects in California. There are numerous sites across the nation, around the world, and of these different mall redevelopment projects, and most of them have a lot in common. So in the next few slides, I'm going to highlight some of those common themes, which include mixed use, amenities, mobility, landscape, streetscape, art, and sustainability. All right, the first one here is mixed use. As you heard from the previous slides, many of these projects embrace a mix of land uses that can include a combination of, the obvious one being retail, residential, office, industrial, and open space. And as you can see from the site plans on the slide, the different colors indicate there are a number of land uses being considered. So as part of mixed use, residential has been a key component in activating these projects and really go hand in hand to further support the retail and office uses. And also these sites are prime locations for housing, given that the backbone infrastructure to support housing is already in place. And also these sites generally have pretty good accessibility. Units are typically on the higher intensity side, so you can see that from some of the images here, and do include different housing options such as for rent, to buy, and affordable housing. So the next theme here has to do with amenities, and this can also be translated as community benefits. These amenities or benefits can really come in many different forms, including a park, entertainment spaces, community gathering areas, like what we saw with the Sunrise example, grocery stores, fitness centers, as well as art installations and bike facilities. And speaking of bike facilities, many mall redevelopment projects really do promote alternative modes of transportation. Because this is a mall, while these projects support automobiles and those visiting the site, there is really this pedestrian first approach that is often embraced, and you'll find walking paths, bike trails integrated into the design. Transit is also key. The next theme is landscape/streetscape. These projects really do put a lot of effort in making these spaces pedestrian friendly, walkable, and aesthetically pleasing. So you'll find tree-lined streets, these ornate lighting fixtures, site furnishings, special paving within either the walkway or crosswalks, beautifully landscaped areas, various structures to provide shade, for instance. The next commonality is public art, and this really does tie back to the amenities and streetscape themes previously mentioned. Art can come in a number of different forms, including light installations, water fixtures, sculptures, murals, site furnishings as well, and you can see some of those examples in the images shown. I do want to note too that the city of Richmond has a public art program which sets aside 1.5 of eligible capital improvement project budgets for the acquisition of public art. And sometimes it feels like art can be undervalued, but it can really play an important role in providing a sense of place and a sense of identity for the project. And last but not least is sustainability. Not only should these projects be economically resilient, and I think it helps by having this kind of mixed use component to their project, strategies have been implemented to demonstrate their environmental responsibility as well. So examples of sustainability strategies include having an open space network with walking and biking trails, as I mentioned earlier, composting and recycling programs, water conservation programs, implementation of green roofs and green walls within the kind of interior facilities of these buildings, and strategies that support different modes of transportation as well as electric vehicles. So in reviewing these examples and themes, there is a huge opportunity at Hilltop. It has, a prime location in the Bay Area. It has great accessibility from I-80. It's serviced by AC Transit and West Cat Transit. And there can also be the opportunity to provide a consolidated bus station on the site. It has a robust infrastructure in place already. This, really is a gem of a site. You're not going to find many development areas of this scale, this size, in an urban setting these days. So there's a lot of potential here, and I think that's why so many of us are excited about this opportunity. So with the next piece, the planning process. The Hilltop project will undergo a planning process to include preparation of a specific plan and environmental document. So a specific plan is a comprehensive planning document intended to implement the general plan for a prescribed area. It's going to provide a unique set of planning policies, development standards, and guidelines for that defined area. Some of the typical specific plan tasks include existing conditions, identifying the opportunities and constraints, developing scenarios, so different land use alternatives for the site before arriving to a preferred plan. Supporting technical analyses will be developed against that preferred plan before putting the document together. So as for schedule, these can take anywhere between 18 to 24 plus months, depending on how things go. And we have seen COVID cause some delays this past year to some projects. In terms of the team, it will require a comprehensive and robust consultant team to include planners such as myself, designers, economists, engineers, civil engineers, and traffic engineers, as well as outreach specialists. Community-driven process. Not only is this, the planning process does include the community, and this project will have a community engagement strategy and program that is robust, inclusive, and equitable. Some of those engagement activities could include engaging with, these types of meetings, the neighborhood council meetings, having advisory committee meetings, community workshops that can include interactive polling and surveying, having study sessions with the planning commission as well as city council, stakeholder interviews, those being some examples. And really the purpose of engagement is to gain community and stakeholder input, as well as to allow the team to share ideas and just reflect against the project. And really the plan should be a reflection of the community, and I really do look forward to the process in the months ahead and hearing from you all. And with that, I'm going to hand the mic back over to Lina to wrap up the presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. So next slide, please. So this effort is being funded through a grant that's known as the Local Early Action Planning Grants. These are state grants that the state just recently issued to cities to help accelerate housing production. That's the intended goal. In addition, it's also to create jobs near transit. We have also submitted an application to the Association of Bay Area Governments for what's known as a Priority Development Area Planning Grant, since the site was designated as a PDA, that we are seeking funding to help supplement the grant that we've already received. So we're very optimistic that we'll have full funding for the project, but if for some reason our PDA grant is not successful, then we may have to adjust some of the scope of the project, but I think we will hear back in May. So our goal is to do a community kickoff in June when we have the funding in place, and that will start likely with a study session in front of the City Council, providing an overview of the project and the effort. So we look forward to working with you all on that. Can we do the next 2 slides, please? So as mentioned, our next steps are sort of waiting to hear back from our planning grant, as well as, we'll revisit the scope to make sure that what gets completed we're able to fund, not using any general fund. And then our kickoff, we are also created a website and the URL is posted there. It's still under construction, but we hope to have it launched in the next week or so. But if you go onto the City of Richmond's webpage, you could just type in Hilltop specific plan and it should direct you to the page. And there will be an opportunity for you to sign up for the listserv. So we hope that you sign up to get emails. We will also be doing postcards to area residents, as well as the neighborhood councils, area businesses, to really generate interest in this planning effort. So next slide. So I just wanted to cover a couple of questions that we don't think we were able to cover in the presentation. There was a question about a project labor agreement. I guess I just want to make sure that folks know we do not have an application from Prologis. They have not submitted a request for redevelopment of the site. And so whether a project will have a project labor agreement, it's not required for, as part of the planning process, as a condition of approval. However, these typically are voluntary agreements that some property owners or developers will enter into. Now, if there are a public-private partnership where the city was to invest funds, then there may be requirements for project labor agreements. The question as to how much housing will be there and where it will be located, we're looking for that input from area residences, businesses, stakeholders to really understand what you want to see, where do you want to see it, what intensity. So we look forward to hearing from you as we determine and provide that guidance within the specific plan. And then the question of how much warehousing can be built under the current zoning. Well, the current zoning doesn't accommodate for a light industrial use. So if that was to be proposed, it would require amending the zoning ordinance to allow such uses. If industrial is allowed, is there a commitment to use full truck fleet or zero emission vehicles? How will we make sure this happens? And will it be required as a condition of approval? So there's several ways that this could be addressed. If it's part of a project, you could make it as a condition of approval. However, if it's part of the specific plan that the community would like to see some industrial uses or even uses that use fleets of vehicles, you can have performance standards, and we can stress the importance of zero emission vehicles, and this will be something that we look at as part of the environmental process. So it may even be a mitigation measure to offset other impacts such as air quality impacts. Can a community benefits agreement be part of the project approvals? Typically, they're not a requirement of just any project. Now, as we mentioned, as part of the specific plan, we are intending to identify community amenities and project needs, so not necessarily every component of a project needs to make money, but it could also needs to serve community needs. So that could translate into, additional bike lanes, an enhanced transit center, gathering spaces, community meeting areas. So we look forward to your involvement in the process to really identify what the community would like to see incorporated as part of the redevelopment of Hilltop Mall and the surrounding area. So that concludes our presentation. Again, thank you to all the neighborhood councils and the Hilltop Community Church for hosting this meeting, and we look forward to continuing our work together.
Thank you, Lina. And so as Lina steps down, I'd like to ask the city council people to come on up and get on the stage here and introduce yourselves. And Lina will try and field some of the questions and concerns that our city council have regarding the Hilltop Mall projects. And once again, thank you for all the neighborhood councils for showing up. And again, if your questions weren't answered in this meeting, there'll be several other meetings, of course, involving community, and we're going to try and have collages here to do their presentation. All right, thank you. If you'd like to start by introducing yourselves, Mr. Martinez, you want to go first?
Thank you. My name is Eduardo Martinez. I'm Richmond City Council member at large.
Matt Bates,
Microphone.
City Council member. Can you hear me? Yeah. I'm Nat Bates. I'm a city member of the council, and I represent District Number 2, where many of you reside.
Good afternoon. My name is Demnlus III, and I am an at-large city council member, and I also have the pleasure of serving as your vice mayor.
I'd like to say the reason that we asked these three city council people are because they are at large, and they do represent our communities up here, because we don't have anyone else. We didn't get a chance to elect anybody in our district. So that being said, they represent the city of Richmond as a whole, and they represent us. So we're going to start off by asking these guys a couple questions. If you could maybe talk about what it would take to change the zoning here, because people are concerned about warehousing, a lot of warehousing. And obviously from the presentation, there's not going to be that much warehousing, and things would have to change. Do one of you guys want to respond to that?
Yeah, so in a brief discussion that I had with our planning director, Velasco, we talked about the 18 to 24 month community engagement process that will really inform the entire Hilltop specific plan. And, if there's going to be warehousing, if there isn't going to be warehousing, if there's going to be any changes to zoning, that's going to come directly from the input of those community engagement meetings, which of course will include the organizers, people in this room, the Hilltop Working Group, as well as the Hilltop Community Church, which I also thank for inviting us out this evening.
And so, Mr. Martinez, I understand you have a sort of a vision of what you'd like to see up there, here in Hilltop.
Yes, I do. I take this off. Actually, Hilltop has been zoned for commercial, and it should be commercial residential. It's a place that a commercial fortress surrounded by multiple parking lots, and what we need is a directly to Hilltop And I envision that road being tree-lined with shops on both sides and with housing on top. And then that would lead us directly to Hilltop. And then on the other side of Hilltop, we have the Hilltop Lake. And that lake could become more useful if we developed some stairs that went from Hilltop proper down there, so that people who lived here, people who shopped here, could actually go down there for picnics. So this is a jewel for development, for housing, and we need to make use of it. If we changed it to industrial, it would impact the air quality of the people who lived around here, and it would stymie any development for business or for housing. So it's important that it remain residential and commercial.
Well, I'd like to say that the Fairmede Hilltop Neighborhood is the original Hilltop Neighborhood, and apparently, for those that don't know the history of Hilltop Mall, our Councilmember Bates was one of the founders. He was actually the person responsible for bringing it up here, and if it wasn't for the voters of Richmond and Hilltop, we wouldn't have a Hilltop Mall. And I'd like to ask Councilman Bates what his thoughts are of seeing it change, and what do you see happening up here?
Well, let me first express appreciation to you all for your leadership and for the other neighborhood councils that are participating. I think Hilltop Fairmede is probably the oldest neighborhood council in the area. I'm very excited with the potential. And about 40 years ago, I was quite instrumental in the development of the Hilltop Shopping Center. And here we are, getting ready to go and revitalize this shopping center. Things have changed, and I think Lina, we want to thank her for a nice presentation from the planning staff. Things have drastically changed, primarily because of the internet. When we first put the shopping center in, it was heavily attended. But you're right. If you go to Sun Valley, if you go to Southland, you will notice that all of these shopping centers are diminishing. Internet, Amazon, a host of other, eBay, and all of that is just taken over. So we have to work together. One thing I'm very discouraged about is that I received communication with email saying no to Prologic. No, this is a business venture, and I think when we look at what's happened, we lost first Macy's. Well, first we lost Catwells. Then Catwell moved out, and then Macy moved into the Catwell's location. Then we lost J.C. Penney's. And then we lost Sears. And what we've got left there is Walmart, who occupied the old Catwell, old Macy's location. Now, when you get a company as big as Prologic coming in and want to work with the city, to be negative and say no to them, that's not being productive. I've communicated with Prologic, and they are now negotiating to finalize the buying, and they indicate very strongly that once they consummate the purchase, they are willing to sit down and work with the city. And I don't like this negativity of going and saying, oh, we don't want you this. For Christ's sake, we're lucky to get a company that big and want to come forward and work with us. And they indicated they're willing to indicate some of the things that they want, but they want to listen to the community and include some of the community's ideas. And that's how you get things done. That's how we did it in the 1970s with Tottenham and the Hilltop Association. That's how we should do it now. We don't want to see our businesses going to Pinole, and Hercules, and Rodeo, and other places. They bring about tremendous revenue to the city with sales tax and property tax, and they bring jobs, of which this community richly needs. So I hope that we will have a positive attitude, and we will not be negative, and we will sit down and listen to what they have to say, and they're willing to interject some of our concerns like any good businessman. But you gotta remember, they're the ones that got the money. The city's not putting up on anything. None of the citizens are putting up anything. And how are you gonna tell me that I'm bringing in $1 trillion that I can't do this and I can't do that? Let's sit down, work cooperatively with them, and let's try to come up with the very best project possible. So, and the reason I asked Art to bring in Vice Mayor Johnson and Councilmember Martinez is that we are the three that continue to represent the entire city after the district elections. So we have another year or so, and that's our responsibility to relate and work with all of the residents in the city. And that's our intent. Even though technically this is, according to the district, my district. My district runs from Point Richmond, Cutting Boulevard to 10th Street, back to the Parkway, North Richmond, York City there, Yorktown, Eureka, Parchester, and from the Hilltop Drive, north, and the George Miller Drive, north, all the way. That's the district number 2, of which I represent. So thank you very much, Art.
Oh, you're welcome. Mr. Johnson, this is a $43 million company, and I like what Nat said. We need to work with them, and one of the questions were community benefits. I was wondering what your thoughts were on community benefits, and you know, the fact is that a lot of people want this to be a world-class destination, and I'm wondering if that's possible. We here in Richmond have not had the best luck with the city as far as taxpayers are concerned. We need something that's extra special up here to bring people to Richmond and not drive them away. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, my first thought is Richmond is a world-class city. So that's my first thought. And my second thought is with the Hilltop specific plan, which I really want to stress because the point that you and Councilmember Bates made in terms of working with Prologis or whoever, because one thing we can't do as private property is dictate the sale, but we can dictate the terms of what happens on that property, right? And so we come to that meeting in good faith, but we also come to that meeting with our specific plan that's informed by our communities. And as a city council, I feel as though we've shown countless times to the Hilltop District our commitment to your wants. I think first starting with the safe parking situation, and then moving on to even this situation here. You know, you see you have almost a quorum. And so we, and then also my colleagues along with Councilmember McLaughlin passed the resolution at the previous city council meeting reaffirming our commitment to the various boards and commissions throughout the city. So with that, I want to say that, you know, I can't say what I want to see in Hilltop because first I don't live in Hilltop. So I'm not going to tell you what I want in your community. So what I would love to see from those community meetings, I'll communicate to the staff who I do have some type of, you know, interaction and organizational structure with, is I would like to see each of these neighborhood councils engaged individually and then as a whole. You know, from what I'm hearing, the Hilltop Working Group is made up of various homeowners associations and neighborhood councils, as well as individual organizations that have a very interested stake in this community. And so I feel as though if we're not getting those individual voices, because each of those HOAs and neighborhood councils have their own flavor. We can't even talk about Hilltop District as if it's one monolithic community because they each have, even Hilltop Green is completely different from Fairmede. So, you know, I wasn't here when Catwell was in Hilltop Mall, but you know, one thing I will say is I was here when the mall was the mall. And so, you know, even You guys know my story. We ended up moving to East County. My family, we would still drive to Hilltop Mall to go shoe shopping. And so it was one of those places that was a destination. And so I feel as Councilmember Bates mentioned, that was because of the community engagement that they did with the previous neighborhood councils. And so I would really like to see a really deep engagement with the individual neighborhood councils, as well as homeowners associations and even organizations that serve the Hilltop community, to see what's needed, because these are the organizations that's going to most frequent this place and that's going to have these new neighbors that come, you know, if and when housing is built in that space. So I hope that answers your question, Arto, and if not, please kick me.
Art has handed me the microphone. My name is April Moore-Roy, and I'm from Hilltop Village. I'm the president of the HOA there, representing 552 homes, condos, townhouses, etc. And the question for me is, I thank you so much for being here. I love this relationship goal. That's my thing. I know we have lots of groups that are self-formed. We're trying to figure out how to corral that so that we have really good representation. So I'm looking forward to the kickoff of the relationship meetings, the engagement meetings. So how soon can we expect, in line with this and the city's vision, how soon do you anticipate? I know you mentioned June. I just want to know how soon we can do that and how would we do that?
I think our large community kickoff will be in June. Now, whether or not it'll be in person or have to be virtually, I think is yet to be seen. But I think in terms of you reaching out to me and to coming to the neighborhood councils now, getting the area residents ready for the process and ready for June and excited, we're happy to start that now. So I'll give you my contact.
Council members, good evening. My name is Cesar Cepeda, President of the Hilltop District Neighborhood Council. It's a pleasure working with all of you. My question, if you can have the best site, the best project, what do you envision as one of the main drawers to this new development? If each one of you can answer sort of what you might envision here. You know, from different perspectives, we've got someone who wasn't here when it was first built, to Councilmember Nat Bates, who probably put one of the first bricks down, right? You've been around and you know you've helped build our community. What do you see as the next future vision for this year? We saw the pretty pictures coming up, and everybody has a vision of 6 floors or one of these or one of those. What do you envision? What would you like to see as your legacy? Because hopefully you'll be around to help vote for this new future project. What do you see as something there as your legacy?
Anybody?
Well, once again, without risking trying to tell the Hilltop District what I want in their community, the idea of having a mixed-use development with housing and shops that has retail with small business owners, as well as some of the chain stores as well, hotels, conventions, things that draw people in, theaters. I'm a theater goer, so I'm going to say things like theater and roller skating rinks and, things that bring, there are also charter schools around, so I'm also thinking about some of the kids that are also going to be seeing, this development and how they can get, and even the kids that live in the neighborhood, how they can get good use out of it. And I know that there's been a outdoor roller skating rink movement happening in the city of Richmond, and I would like to see that formalized as well. And, Hilltop is a great place to really make that happen.
Well, I can only speak from experience. When we first brought forth the Hilltop Shopping Center, we did have some of those amenities. We had a movie theater. We had an ice skating rink. In fact, I think we had about 2 or 3 movies, if I'm not mistaken. These things continue and thrive on the basis of economics. If you can't make money as a business person, or you're losing money as a business person, those desires that you may want are just going to disappear. I've learned over years I've associated with businesses is that to be open-minded, to be flexible, and to try to understand the things that they want to push forward. A good example is that we had several restaurants here. We had that Red Lobster. We had Olive Garden, beautiful restaurants. What happened? Well, there's a combination of factors. I won't go into them because they're very negative. But I'm telling you, businesses will provide the kind of amenities that we want so long as it's financially beneficial to them. And once a business starts losing money, that business is going to disappear. So again, in my communication with Prologic, is that once this deal is consummated, they want, willing to come before this body again and explain some of their ideas. And I think it's like putting out a Christmas list. Everybody, to their parents, they want this and they want that. Well, you're not going to get everything you want. Hopefully you get most of what you want. But it's a give and a take. Same as parents, they can only afford certain things. Same as a business, it's too expensive. So I would suggest keep our minds open. Of course, put your wish list on the Christmas table, and let's see what Prologic come forward with. And we may be surprised that some of the things we put on the Christmas list, they've already included it. And if they haven't, let's negotiate. Let's work with them. So I'm not about to go in and tell them what they can do and what they can't do. I think this council and this community have the responsibility to listen to what they are proposing. And we'll negotiate from that point.
I have a dream of Richmond, and I have a dream of what Hilltop could look like. But it's not my dream to visualize, but it is my dream to share. And I think it's time that we dream together. That I bring my dream to you, you bring your dream to me, and we talk about it and come up with something that could possibly be better than my dream or possibly be better than your dream. We mix it up. I think that we need more housing. In fact, I know we need more housing. This is the place to build it. This is the place to build housing, and with that housing, the people who live there will support the businesses that need to supply their needs. If we have people here, we'll have people who will go to the movies. We'll have people that will go to the restaurants. People who will shop in the shops. And so this can only happen if we hold that dream dear and make sure that there aren't things that keep it from happening. If we change Hilltop to industrial, then it kills that dream, because people aren't going to want to live next to businesses. People aren't going to want to live next to trucks coming in and out constantly. So we need to make sure that our dreams are clear and that our dreams follow the planning, or rather that the planning follows the dreams that we have. It's like it's hard for me to express because I don't like to tell people what to do, but I do like to make suggestions and to have that conversation so that we come up with something together. But we need more housing, and oh yes, I know where I was trying to go. If we let the people with money tell us what our dreams should be, then that's the tail wagging the dog. That's money telling us what we should be doing. We should instead hold fast to the dream and tell the people with money, this is what we want. If you can do this, please come, you're welcome. We want to make sure that the people we invite, that the money that is spent here is spent in the right places. If someone wants to do industrial, let's send them to an industrial park. And we have one here. So let's make sure that things happen in the right place and that our dreams stay true.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for your answers. My name is Lori Hart, and I'm part of the PVNC, which is the Parchecha Village Neighborhood Community Council, and I'm the secretary. Mayor Butts had indicated that the previous sale to the mall had fallen through. So my question is, with that having happened, have you guys taken that into consideration, and what are you doing to facilitate Prologic getting this? Because I hadn't heard about, I'd heard about the mixed use and everything coming, and it wasn't until Macy's closed and he put out the clarion call that we don't have any revenue for Richmond because Macy's is closing. So what is City Council doing and looking at why that failed through and what they can do to further Prologic or any developer's process in coming here? Because Vice Mayor, I've been around right about in the middle. Not quite Capwell's, but all of the malls and the skating and all of that. And that mall was a place of thriving. It was a place for families. We in Richmond are families, and we need something to bring families back here. Because it doesn't matter what you do, if you do not make that family oriented. If a mother and father can't go in there while the mother goes shopping and the father takes the children to do something, we're never gonna get people in here. So I appreciate all that you guys are doing, but I really want for you guys to focus or look at what happened to that previous deal and maybe put some stop places in here so that we don't get to that place with them where we think the Prologic is going to do this and then it falls.
And our city's economic development department, as well as the Economic Development Commission, which I'm the liaison to, has undergone a contract with HRNA to do an economic development strategic plan for the entire city of Richmond. And I do believe that these are some of the things that they will be looking at as to why businesses come and go to this, to the city of Richmond and at the different levels as well. So I hope that addresses your question.
I'd also like to say that as council members, a lot of the stuff that happens, we don't know until it comes to the city council. And it doesn't come to the city council until it's ready to roll. So I think what we need is closer relationship with the planning department. The planning department needs to let the city council know what's coming down the pike so that we can look into it and be able to have more of a voice so that we can communicate with our city neighborhood councils, so that we can communicate with people about what's happening in their communities. I've often been surprised to hear that things are happening and someone in the community found out before I found out. And I work for the city, I'm a city council member. It seems like I should know before the community, but I don't. So that's something that we need to change to make sure that we can be here for you.
Well, this is going to be a time-consuming process. Already you've heard from the planning department in terms of giving grants to begin to plan what can and what cannot be done in that area. Once the deal is consummated, then we're in a position to start seriously discussing with the Prologic, if that's the owner, various ideas and proposals. And as we've already indicated, we want the community to be actively involved. But at the meantime, we've got to allow the planning department to begin to put together some things and what we can do and what we can't do, so that we don't be asking, we want this and that, and then the planning says, well, you can't do it because it's not zoned for that. So within the zoning process, will heavily dictate. Now, there may be a need for changing the zoning. I heard the planning director, Lina, indicate that we could go as high as 12 stories. That's up to the community. You want to structure that tall with housing. But I want to piggyback on Councilmember Martinez. Housing is extremely critical in this nation, not just in Richmond. And I was listening, I think, where the Biden administration said nationwide we need about 400 million houses throughout the nation. And that's include the whole United States. And if you try to buy a house today, you're going to find that you put a bid in for 250 or 300, somebody's going to put in 400. I mean, it's a seller's market. And we've been trying to put homes, apartments, so forth, but we haven't been able to do an effective job of putting in homes where people can purchase. The rental is one thing, but I'd like to see, and I hope the community to see, we need private-owned homes. They do so much for us. People take great pride. I remember when we had the Fairmede and the Hilltop homes. Some of them were little rentals, and all of a sudden we started putting them on the market for sale, and they were just sold overnight almost. So that's what we need, is private homes where people can take ownership and feel proud, and they want to be here a while, not rental units. That's just one observation, but it's up to the community. And I'll listen to them, as I always do, and whatever you finally decide collectively, I'll be supportive.
Well, I wanted to point out that this is Eduardo again. That I've been speaking to Prologis as well, and they've hired a mixed-use developer that specializes in areas like the mall. And it sounds as if they're going to be fixated on the mixed-use part before they get to the warehouse, and if they get a warehouse. But my question is that we've had a lot of people saying we need housing, then we have a lot of people saying we don't want more housing. And so the question is there a mandate from the state on what kind of housing we should build and how much housing? And is there a mandate from the city on how much housing we should build and what type?
Well, there are recent legislation coming down to cities, the Housing Accountability Act, SB 330, SB 35. So there are provisions that if through the community planning process it's decided that housing is not appropriate here, we will need to identify additional locations where the housing could be replaced elsewhere. So I think that that's part of the process, and the general plan was adopted in 2012. We understand things change, priorities change, and so as part of this community-driven process, we want to hear from you is, what is needed in this neighborhood, what types of jobs, and then look at the economics of it. As our council members have mentioned, it's important to not dream up a project that can't be ever realized, because we didn't look at the economics, and so we do see that being an important part of this process. And but it's also a time to revisit our vision from 2012 and figure out what's going to work best for this community now and in the near future.
I'd like to make a comment on the appropriateness of building housing here as opposed to other places. I would really contest the idea that it's not appropriate to build housing here. I mean, if we can build housing, if we can build a community on a brownfield that's partially cleaned up, then why can't we build something here? In fact, I think this area is actually cleaner than the place where they're going to, where they're planning on building something. Something else is that I would like, when we have this planning, hilltop planning, what I would like to see is some kind of overall plan so that things don't just happen piecemeal, you know, like a patchwork quilt. We need to make sure that we have a clear plan for the entire area, and that plan is something that we stick to, a plan that will grow as Hilltop grows, as opposed to, you know, doing whatever someone with a wad of cash wants to do. You know, we need to tell people what Richmond wants instead of having other people tell us what they want from Richmond.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to add, Nat? Is there anything you'd like to add to that? I mean,
Well, you know, if you look back in history, I guess, anytime you make a decision 40 years ago, you can say, well, we should have done this, we should have done that. And I think that one of the things that occurred is that we were convinced that there would be such a humongous shopping that we needed all the property there for parking. Well, in retrospect, we realized that we probably could have put in some housing around the shopping center, because that parking area that we have has never, as long as it's been there, it has never been filled, even during Christmas time. But we did make some adjustments. We put in some homes in front of Firestone, condos, I recall, and that was beneficial. So now it's a matter of how do we situate housing that is not an impediment to the Prologic's development. I think it can be done, but it's, you know, it's going to be the planning department working with the community and working with the company to see if we can achieve that. But housing is, I think we all agree, is desperately needed, and especially home ownership homes. So I just want to thank you again, Art, for your leadership. And this is what it takes to get anything accomplished, working together with the neighborhood councils and the community at large. And you got to remember too that this is not just a project in Hilltop. This is a city project. It covers the whole entire city. So we're going to have to reach out. If we want to be equitable, successful, and get a comprehensive response from the community, we got to reach out to the entire community, not just Hilltop. Although you will probably take the leadership because it's immediately in your neighborhood, but let's be inclusive and make sure that we hear from everyone.
Thank you, Nat. This question might be for Lina. Transportation, that's a really big thing in our area. We have one of the last BART stops in Richmond, but from there to the mall, or the mall site right now, it's a dead space. What can we do to be innovative and creative to connect? Because as we start building more housing, and hopefully we build a lot more, we need to be able to move these individuals into the ferry, into BART, and into other areas so they can move around without necessarily having more cars. So what can we do to build more transit?
So I think that will be part of the analysis, is really getting a sense of how people move. And there's been a lot of studies recently about, you know, transportation where people are connecting to last mile links. So I think our goal would really be to look at, like, where do people in this neighborhood, where are they traveling from? And then workers too, if retail or industrial or commercial is part of this, is how do people get here. There is good bus service now. Now it's probably not as frequent, but I think with more rooftops, more concentration of people, that should improve over time, because we also have the park and ride on Bloom and I-80, so there's a lot of transit, and maybe it's about how to get people from the mall to the transit center, consolidating it, making it more comfortable, because as we know, the amenities and signage is a little bit difficult, plus, you know, the speeding on Hilltop Mall Road is a deterrent for people that are walking or biking, and so as part of the process we'll be looking at is how to create safe streets that are, you know, really prioritize the pedestrian, but then also looking at where do you make the bike connections, the transit stops. So all of that will be part of the process.
In my dream, I see a Richmond that will be here long after I'm gone. And in this dream, I see Bart going from Richmond to the community college to Hilltop. Now, this is something that we need to start planning for now if we want that dream to become a reality. And the Hilltop is built in a caldera, which means that it's down below. And because of that, as you're driving on the freeway, you can't really see Hilltop. You can see the signs, but you can't really see Hilltop. So I believe that a 12-story building might be something that we want there, but we would want it built by an architect that makes it attractive, that draws the eye, that makes people on the freeway want to pull over and check out that snazzy building. And when they drive in, they're going to be driving into a community that's alive, with people walking up and down the streets and eating in restaurants. So you know, this is a dream that I have, and you know, I'm sharing it with you because I want to spark your imagination. I want to see what kind of dreams you can come up with, and you know, so I offer you mine.
So I think we're about ready to wrap it up, unless there's somebody or anybody wants to add anything. Demnlus?
I guess I'll say as a closing statement, so to say, what it all boils down to are the community meetings. And making sure that we get out there and that we get our neighbors out there. We get our community groups, our HOAs involved in this 18 to 24 month process, so we can begin to put our Christmas list together, as Councilmember Bates would say, and present to the people with money our plan, as Councilmember, you know, tell them what we want, as Councilmember Martinez would say. So I think what it boils down to at the end of the day is whether we want industrial or not industrial, whether we want EV cars, EV trucks or no EV trucks, if we want housing or no housing, if we want Gucci or if we want mom and pop, that all, like, let's get those ideas out in that 18 to 24 month process, because I think what we started, we had no more than 2 hours here tonight, and so, and it's us talking to you, so we need to hear with, you know, what you want, and so that process is going to, I think, I can't stress enough how important it is that we use that process, and as the leaders of your communities and neighborhood councils and HOAs, it's going to be very important that not only just you, but you get your neighbors out as well, so we can begin to get a diverse set of ideas and get the real representation of the Hilltop District and even the broader Richmond community, as Councilmember Bates mentioned. Thank you. And thanks again to the Hilltop Community Church as well as the Hilltop Working Group for putting this together and inviting me out tonight.
I would just like to close by stating that let's dispel of the negativity, first and foremost. Let's be positive. Let's work together. And let's work with a company that saw fit to come in here and invest millions of dollars. I have no intentions of running them away. We run them away, I don't know that we'll ever get anyone else. So it's like going to a dance, you dance with a lady that you that you brought with you. So we're partners, and that's what this business relationship is all about. It's not an anti-prologic, it's not an anti-city. We're beginning to become a partner working together collectively to come up with the very best possible project that we can, that not just benefit them financially, but benefit this city. And I hope that that is the atmosphere that we will continue to operate from. Thank you again, Art, for your leadership.
I would like to thank the Hilltop community for inviting us and for making this happen. You guys always do quality gatherings, and I feel honored to be part of it. And I agree with Councilmember Bates in terms of the negativity. We should not approach things with a negative frame of mind. But at the same time, we need to say what it is we want and to stick to it. Saying no to Prologis isn't being negative. It's being proactive for your community. Now, we could say in a positive frame of mind, Prologis, we would love to have you here if you want to build housing, if you want to build a community center, if you want to build a shopping center. You know, you're more than welcome to invest and help us realize the dream that we have for Richmond.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that I've heard from Prologis, and they want to put their best foot forward. They want to start out with the mixed-use development, and it's on par with what Lina presented. And I think people will be happy with, most people will be happy with it. And the warehouse aspect, it's off the table until the zoning is changed, so people could rest assured, as far as I'm concerned. Am I right, Lina? They'd have to change the zoning in order to put in warehousing, so that's off the table until that's changed. And so, like the gentleman said, let's look at the positive and work with them as best we can, and you know, make this a destination. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Lina?
That I'll be seeing you all soon, and you know, I like the forum. I think, you know, the Facebook Live, and just, you know, we're looking forward to getting input. I'm sure there's a lot of people who have been itching to provide their thoughts and share what they would like to see, and so we're really looking forward to hearing that, and look forward to going to your neighborhood councils, whether it's virtually or in person. So I hope you all stay well. Thank you.
So in closing, I want to thank the Hilltop Community Church as well. And I want to remind people that they're giving away free boxes of food on Saturdays. Here this Saturday at 10 a.m., they'll be giving away boxes of food. And we will be having a Zoom meeting regarding the Reimagining Community Task Force. They want to present to the City Council. We're going to have a Zoom meeting with the police department, the police chief, the president of the Officers Union, and the union itself. So that'll be next Thursday on the 22nd at 6 p.m. It'll be a Zoom meeting, so please, if you can attend, we'll put the link out on Facebook and Nextdoor. So with all that, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and be safe, and I hope this was informative. Thank you.